Abraham Lincoln said it this way. He says, the best way to destroy your enemy is to make him your friend. At the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, the enemy only comes to do three things: to steal, kill, and destroy the truth. That's what he's trying to do. So now let's travel back in time 4,000 years and begin to discover where the history of some of these traditions came from. We're going to find ourselves all the way back in the time of Noah. Matter of fact, let's begin in the old-fashioned way. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there lived a man named Nimrod. Nimrod was the great-grandson of Noah. He was the most popular man on the earth at the time. Matter of fact, he was the king of the then-known world. He was responsible for building the cities of Babel, and the Tower of Babel, and the city of Nineveh, amongst others. Well, all that being aside, Nimrod, no doubt, had tremendous influence among the people that he was with. And what happened was he had this uncanny reputation of strength. He created great armies, and he was the ruler of the then-known world right after the flood. He was full of idolatry and covetousness, drunkenness, and rebelliousness towards God. And he had a phenomenal ability to deceive. Matter of fact, I suppose he was much like, I guess, an early politician 4,000 years ago. But Nimrod married a woman named Semiramis. Now, Semiramis and Nimrod became basically king and queen of the then-known world. Well, at some point, Nimrod dies, and he became deified. He was the very first person that was ever deified on planet Earth, and they made him the sun god, which ended up being Baal. The word Baal in your scriptures can be traced back to Nimrod. So it's an interesting reality of history. When you see Baal and Ashtaroth, you're ended up coming all the way back to this story of Nimrod and Semiramis. And so Baal is now ruling the universe as the sun god, and somehow luck has it, through the Babylonian legend, that Semiramis gets pregnant by the rays of the sun of her deceased husband, Nimrod. And she gives birth to a young baby boy named Tammuz. Now, further down in the story, as Tammuz grows and becomes a man, Tammuz actually marries his mother, and they have a very sexual relationship. And that baby Tammuz and his mother Semiramis is where you get the story of Cupid. Cupid, during Valentine's Day, is how the story of Valentine's Day developed, was from Tammuz, who married a very unbiblical relationship with his mother. Okay, back to the story of Tammuz. So Tammuz, for 40 years, was a tremendous hunter, and he took the place of his father, ruling the world, and had tremendous power. But more than anything, he was a credible hunter. But unfortunately, his gift and his skill of hunting caught up with him one day, because he was killed during his 40th year by a wild boar. Every spring, the first Sunday after the vernal equinox, the spring equinox, they have what was called Ishtar's Sunday. And they would have a sunrise service. At the sunrise service, the priest of Ishtar would impregnate young virgins on the altar, and during that same service, they would take the babies that were now 3-month-old from the previous year, and they would sacrifice those children on the altar to Ishtar, and then they would take the eggs of Ishtar, and they would dip those eggs in the blood of those young infants. And that is where we get sunrise services, and that is potentially where we get the dyeing of Easter eggs. It is also interesting to note that worldwide universal color of Easter eggs is red. Even the White House, the official color of the White House Easter egg is ruby red. Now, back to Tammuz. Tammuz gets killed by a wild boar. So every year, in commemoration of celebrating the death and the deification of Tammuz, which became the son of God, the son of his father, they would set aside 40 days prior to Easter, and they would fast and they would pray, and they would have a giant feast on Easter Sunday where they would celebrate the death and the resurrection of Tammuz. And guess what they would have for dinner on that Sunday evening? You got it, Easter ham. They would kill a boar in commemoration to Tammuz, who was killed by a wild boar. And yes, the 40 days prior to Easter, we call it Lent, or the Catholics call it Lent, that 40 days did not come from, my friends, the 40 days of Jesus in the wilderness. That 40 days was already in place for thousands of years before Jesus even showed up. It comes from the 40 days of fasting and praying for Tammuz before they celebrated Easter. I'm going to give you some of the names and what they're most commonly remembered for in these different cultures, and some of you will recognize them immediately. First of all, in Egypt, they were known as Isis and Osiris. In Phoenicia, they were recognized as Asheroth and Baal, the very same Asheroth and Baal that you see in the Scriptures. In Greece, they were Aphrodite and Adonis, or Eros, where we get the word erotic from. And in Rome, they were called Venus and Cupid. That's right, that's where we get Valentine's Day from, and Cupid. Even in the Far East, listen to this, this is amazing, Cupid was known as Zoroaster. Zoroaster is made up of two words, Zoro, which means seed of, and Asheroth, which is Easter. And so what Cupid actually means in the Far East is the seed of Easter, or the seed of his mother. God always tries to speak to the Israelites and warn them to stay away from Ashtaroth and Baal. Let's read the Scriptures. Judges chapter 2 verse 13 says this, "And they forsook Yahweh and served Baal and Ashtaroth." 1 Samuel chapter 7 verse 4 says, "Then the children of Israel did put away Baalim and Ashtaroth and served Yahweh only." And last but not least, in Romans chapter 11 verse 4 it says, "But what says the answer of God unto him? I have reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal." Right about this time, you're probably having that thought that I warned you about hit your brain, saying, that's not what it means to me. I celebrate the birth of Jesus, and I put all the focus on Jesus, and I celebrate His resurrection, and I want to focus on Him. Well, your heart may be to want to focus on Him, and you absolutely may do that. But the truth of the matter is that it doesn't matter how much we focus, how sincere we are, and how pure our hearts are. It only matters that are we worshiping Him the way that He asks us to worship Him, and is anything that we're doing offending Him. And later on in the program, we're going to go through the Scriptures and see if there are any Scriptures talking about Christmas and Easter and any particular instructions allowing us to worship Him in whatever way that we want. But in the meantime, please keep an open mind as we move through the rest of this history and some of these symbols, which are very shocking, that you're going to find out how they moved through time and ended up in our Christian churches today. Tammuz and his mother, Semiramis. If you look on your screen, you're going to see Isis and Osiris, or this is Ishtar and Tammuz. Now, some of you may be asking, well, wait a minute, I celebrate Easter. You're talking about Ishtar. Easter is actually the Anglicization of the word Ishtar. In other words, if you say Ishtar in English, it's pronounced Easter. That's how the etymology of that word evolved over time. What I want you to see is, I want you to see what's on her head is a crescent moon, and in the center of that crescent moon is the actual sun itself. And so the symbol of power of Isis, or Ishtar, was the crescent moon holding the sun itself, her deceased husband, Baal, the sun god. And you can see the baby there that is nursing from her breast. Ishtar was known as the goddess of the East, the bare-breasted fertility god of the East, or the sunrise, which is why they had the service at sunrise on Easter morning. Here on your screen, you see a pagan carving of the solar deity Baal Hadad depicted as a disc in a crescent. Okay, you can see the half-moon disc there in the center of your screen with the sun that is cradled inside of it. And that is the sun god, as well as the crescent moon that surrounds it. Now, as you see that the main symbol for the sun god was the crescent moon with the sun on the top of it, or centered and cradled inside that crescent moon, we now move to something that's a bit controversial but very true historically, is the Catholic Eucharist is actually the sun that is inside of that crescent moon. I'm going to show you some pictures of the actual Eucharist in different positions, and you're going to see that not only is it similar, it's identical. This is where they got the symbols from. You can see here, this is a particular object that holds the Eucharist, and I found this online, and this is what the quote said. I left off the particular church for obvious reasons, but this was their advertisement for a particular Friday. It says, Eucharistic adoration is held on the first Friday of every month for the purpose of honoring and praying to the Blessed Sacrament. Now, I don't know about you, but my Bible says to pray to the Father, our Father. Yeshua, Jesus, said to pray to the Father. He did not say to pray to inanimate objects, whether they represent Him or not. Now, look very carefully at, on the right-hand side, you can see the moon, the crescent moon shaped, holding that sun or that wafer of bread. Here's a close-up of it right here. The crescent moon cradle with the sun-shaped monstrance of the Roman Catholic Church. And now you'll see that it's actually the rays of the sun go all the way around this. They didn't hide it at all. Why did they not hide it? Because this is thousands of years old. This comes right out of paganism and sun god worship, where it was the symbol of Baal and his wife Ishtar. And right here you can see the pine cone staff is another symbol found in paganism that's connected with the sun god coming out of Egypt, Osiris. It's kind of in the form of a pitchfork, you can see, where the pine cone is in the center. Now, why did they choose a pine cone? Because a pine cone represents fertility. It comes from the pine tree, which stays green all year round. And so as everything began to die in the winter, the pine tree became a symbol of new hope and life and fertility. And you can see that even in Mexico, they found a Mexican god that is holding a pine cone on one hand, pine cones on one hand, and the pine cone tree on the other. Now, what's interesting is the largest pine cone structure in the world can be found in the Court of the Pine at the Vatican itself. Let me ask a question. Why is a pine cone being found in the Court of the Pine at the Vatican? Why did they choose a pine cone? Why is it that the pine cone can be found on the staff of the Pope himself? Because this staff goes all the way back to ancient sun god worship, where it represented power and authority of the gods, you see. And this is a close-up of that staff right here, where the pine cone is embedded right in the staff itself. Let's move on to another symbol. This is the symbol of the trident. The trident is the devil's pitchfork. It really is a symbol of Satan, of the horns of Satan. It's an ancient satanic and pagan hand gesture called the trident. We find this in archaeology all over the place. Whenever you get into any kind of society of sun god worship, you find the trident everywhere. You see it in ancient Babylon. It was placed in the hands of all the pagan sun gods. All the pagan gods and pharaohs had some sort of trident, a staff, that they would be connected to power and authority of the gods. The most famous one, of course, is Neptune's trident. We call it the devil's pitchfork, and that's where it comes from. It's just not a drawing that someone made up. This has history built into it of where these things come from. Now, if you move forward in time, or during the same time period, you're going to find another symbol that is even more important. As a matter of fact, you're going to see two symbols in this picture. This is a pagan statue of Jupiter that has been renamed St. Peter. And he's holding up, guess what? The trident symbol. That symbol is a satanic symbol recognizing the power of the gods of the sun. And you'll also see another symbol in this picture, and that is the halo. Look real carefully. It's not a halo, it's a sunburst. What they put behind the heads of the gods, or the saints, if you will, is not a halo, it is a sunburst representing the power of the sun god. And they call this St. Peter in the Vatican, but in reality, history tells us this is the god Jupiter. You also see what is baby Jesus, supposed to be baby Jesus, is none other than baby Tammuz. And how do we know it's not Jesus? Because you see trident all over the place. you see the trident symbol in the hand of the infant Jesus, along with the tridents coming out of the statue's head. You'll see 3 tridents, 2 coming off the sides of the head and 1 coming off the top of the head. This is not baby Jesus, ladies and gentlemen. This is a pagan sun god, Tammuz, from the story of Baal, Nimrod, and Semiramis, ended up being Cupid in today's Valentine's Day. And right here is the ancient Babylonian altar for the sun god Baal, and its main symbol is the 8-pointed star, which can be depicted as 2 4-point stars built inside of one another as the solar wheel. We see the same solar wheel sunburst over a Buddhist temple in Thailand. Here is a monastery, St. Ignatius, where the solar wheel or sunburst is depicted in the floor tiles. Here is the face of a child, which is, of course, Tammuz, within the fertility symbol of the sun's rays on a Roman Catholic altar. The same exact symbol is shown in a face of the Babylonian sun god on a pulpit in a Roman Catholic church in Scandinavia. Okay, all this same symbol comes right out of paganism, as I've shown. Okay, this is probably one of the most fascinating pictures that I have. I zoomed in to the Vatican using Google Earth and stopped several miles above, and look what we discovered is this is the largest solar wheel on Earth. This is the court of St. Peter at the Vatican in Rome itself. Excuse me, the sun disk behind the head of this Roman Catholic statue in Westminster Cathedral in London. Where did they get the idea of sun disks behind these saints? It's because this was what was found behind the head of Jupiter and all these sun gods was the actual monstrance of the Roman Catholic Church. That halo is not a halo, that is a sun disk, and they borrowed it from paganism. We see here behind Krishna another sun disk behind his head, and this is just to show that it doesn't just happen in Catholicism, that the sun disk predates Catholicism by hundreds, even thousands of years. It was borrowed. We see it in stained glass windows behind all of the Roman Catholic saints, even Mary. And if you look carefully, you see the Sacred Heart. That Sacred Heart, even though I don't have time to go into this, even the Sacred Heart comes right out of paganism. That exact same symbol with the sun disk behind the Sacred Heart has to do with Baal and Tammuz, the sun gods. And you can see it all over the Roman Catholic Church and even in other pagan religions across the world. And where do we find this 8-pointed star, this solar wheel, this sun disk today? None other than on top of our Christmas trees. Now, I know all of us have been taught that the star on top of the Christmas tree represents the Star of Bethlehem, that the kings came in to find baby Jesus. But unfortunately, the star of the ancient pagan sun gods predates the star of the Christmas tree, the Star of Bethlehem, by over 1,000 years. They were taking the sunburst and connecting it to what you're going to learn in just a few minutes is the tree of Nimrod, and that is where we get our Christmas tree from and the star that we put on top. If you look carefully, you can see there is a tremendous significance and a similarity between the sunburst and the star that we put up there today. Here's the sun disk proudly displayed on top of Christmas trees in a mall. Matter of fact, this one doesn't even hide the fact that it's not a star. It's the sun that you're looking at. Even the 8-pointed star on top of the White House Christmas tree for everyone to see is the same 8-point star that we find in archaeology thousands of years ago connected to pagan sun god worship. This is an incredible quote that I found in my research when trying to make a connection between Ishtar and the 8-pointed star. And in Uruk, an ancient Sumerian city in southern Iraq, 3,000-year-old tablets were discovered where it said that the celestial identity of Ishtar was none other than the 8-pointed star. And you can look up the resource for that on your own. Okay, the word obelisk literally means Baal's shaft or Baal's organ of reproduction. It's almost always placed in the center of a circle, the solar wheel, which represents the female genitalia and the physical sexual act. And so this is why the solar wheel and the obelisk work together in tandem. This is why you see the solar wheel in the Vatican Square, St. Peter's Square, and you see the obelisk that runs right dead center through the hub of that wheel. It's the consummation of that sexual act between the sun god and his wife, Semiramis, or Ishtar, or as we pronounce it in English, Easter. You can see how the two work in tandem together. Now, in some of these, as the one that you can see here in Turkey, you can see that the ancient hieroglyphic and their language and pictures are actually still on these obelisks. Here's Cleopatra's Needle. Cleopatra's Needle is not just a neat little emblem. This was erected as a commemoration to the sun god there in London. This is the oldest obelisk in Scotland. This is the oldest obelisk in Switzerland, you can see. In Germany, in Paris, France, this one's covered with Egyptian hieroglyphics, all talking about a sun god worship. How about Mecca? It would scare me to death, ladies and gentlemen, to find out that that Islam's one of their big idols is an obelisk right there, dead center, downtown Mecca. And here, these obelisks we find all over the United States here. How about in Luxor, Egypt, near the Nile River, there is an Egyptian obelisk. This is one of the most famous obelisks in the entire world. It's in Buenos Aires, Argentina. It's dedicated to the sun god Ra, who is said to live inside of it. Everyone in that town, in that city, it's been there and knows the history behind that obelisk, knows that and understands that. Here's one in Amsterdam. Here's one in Ethiopia, Mongolia. That is not a place for an Egyptian obelisk, which represents the male organ of the sun god coming through the genitalia of the solar wheel. Should not be in anything that is connected to Jesus, our Lord, whatsoever. But unfortunately it is in this modern day. The mixture of paganism and Christianity has crept into such a degree that we don't even recognize it because we don't know our history. We don't read the front of the book. Okay, now this is an interesting slide because this particular picture is of an obelisk that's in the court of St. John's Church over there in Rome. And it's actually the Pope's church. It's actually the cathedral of the Pope. Here's this obelisk, where it came from. The Egyptian obelisk that stands in the square of St. John Lateran is the largest in existence. Originally carved during the reign of Pharaoh Thutmose III, it stood in the temple of Ammon in Thebes, sun god, but was removed to Rome by Emperor Constantius, AD 317 to 361, and placed in the Circus Maximus. In 1587, Pope Sixtus V unearthed the fallen, broken, and long-forgotten obelisk and had it repaired and placed in the Piazza S. Giovanni in Laterano. How about the Washington Monument? Is it a monument? It certainly is a monument, but it's not a monument to our God. It's a monument to the sun god. Where do we find this main symbol of the obelisk? Would it shock you to discover that we find it in our churches? That's right. That's where the sun god obelisk ended up. It ends up in our churches all around the world. We call them steeples. They're called obelisk in ancient Egypt. If Pharaoh or an ancient Egyptian was alive today, they would walk down the street and they would feel comfortable coming to most of the churches that we have today because they would say, wow, that is my religion. That's something that I can connect to. That is sun god worship. And we see throughout all around the world, here's one that has two pillars that are built into this particular church. Ladies and gentlemen, the obelisk, the sun god worship, there shouldn't be one single symbol anywhere of ancient paganism or Egyptian sun god worship that is found inside of our religious societies today in Christianity. We see it. It doesn't matter what denomination, whether it's Lutheran, whether it's Baptist, whether it's non-denominational. It doesn't matter where you find it. No matter what denomination, you are going to find this obelisk all over the place. Now we come to this same slide that says, but that's not what it means to me, Jim, and I know that many of you are thinking that. And the reality is it doesn't matter what it means to us, and that's so difficult for us to comprehend and to get through our hearts and our minds, that it only matters what it means to Him. Certainly most of us would not wear a necklace that was a satanic symbol. But yet we will build churches with symbols that we don't even know are satanic. We will have holidays that surround themselves with pagan symbols, and yet because we don't know them, we think it's okay. But the reality is that the great God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he knows what those symbols mean. And so from his perspective, he sees those symbols, and it reminds him of when they passed their children through the fire of Molech. It reminds them of the infants that were killed and sacrificed on the altars of Ishtar. It reminds him of all the sun god worship, of all of his people that turned their side against Yahweh and served other gods. It's a reminding symbol to him, and for that reason alone, we should put those symbols behind us and get rid of them and burn them, like Nehemiah and Jeremiah and the great prophets of old that tore down those high places and they destroyed those pillars. And here they spent their blood in pouring out their blood and their strength and their children to tear down those high places. And here we are building those high places right back up. Now, when do you think the birthday of Nimrod and Tammuz was? On the first day of the year when the sun is reborn. And what day do you think that the sun is reborn? In the middle of the winter, at the winter solstice, December 25th. That's right. That's where we get December 25th on Christmas Day, where we say that Jesus was born. Why did we choose Jesus being born on December 25th? Where did that date come from? Very simple. Jesus was the Son of God. Tammuz was the son of the gods. He was the son of his father, Baal. And so the pagans, which early Christianity came right out of paganism in Rome, they were already worshiping the sun god on Sunday in Rome, which is where we get worshiping on Sunday from. It used to be that all of the early Christians worshiped on Saturday, but it was changed to Sunday because all of the pagans worshiped the sun god on his day, Sunday, and they worshiped him on his birthday on December 25th. So naturally, when Jesus came into the picture and Constantine supposedly got saved in the 300s, they compromised to make it easier for people to convert to Christianity by making Jesus' birthday on the same birthday as the sun gods that they were already used to celebrating, and that's where we get December 25th from. Let's move to this character called Odin, because this is where we're going to get into a little bit more detail of our holiday, is where some of these symbols come from. Along with the celebration of the sun gods, the Scandinavians also worshiped this god called Odin. He was the god of intoxicating drink, ecstasy, as well as the god of death. And because of the Feast of Saturnalia dealing with all those things, he naturally became the most popular god of the Feast of Saturnalia, which was a sun god, which we can trace all the way back to Baal himself. Guess who this character became? Look at him very carefully. What does he look like? The colors are wrong, but this guy became Santa Claus. That's right. Odin, or Woden, was the god of wisdom, magic, and occult knowledge, runes, poetry, and war. And so what we're going to show you right now is an actual clip or a short movie of a montage of different videos that we've discovered of where they still make this celebration, still celebrate this all around the world, where they literally glorify the demonic part of Christmas and St. Nicholas and these dark helpers. There are some scholars that believe that the actual song Jingle Bells came from the Krampus bells that were in existence for a long time before that song was ever written, that every time you saw St. Nicholas, he was accompanied by the bells of Christmas, if you will, from his elves. They used to have bells that would hang from their necks, and as you heard in the video, they would you would hear the bells as they announced themselves into the next town that they were going into. Look here, the World Book Encyclopedia says this: the belief that Santa enters the house through the chimney developed from an old Norse legend. The Norse believed that the goddess Hertha appeared in the fireplace and brought good luck to the home. Let's move into Deuteronomy chapter 12. This is really the king of scriptures, if you will, that give us a good, clear indication of whether or not we can do things just because we are sincere about it. Deuteronomy chapter 12 says this, "And you shall destroy their altars, break their sacred pillars, their obelisk, burn their wooden images with fire. You shall cut down the carved images of their gods and destroy their names from that place. You shall not worship the Lord your God with such things." He says, you shall not at all do as we are doing here today, every man doing whatever's right in our own eyes. When the Lord your God cuts off from before you the nations which you go to dispossess, still in chapter 12 of Deuteronomy here, and you displace them and dwell in their land, listen carefully, in verse 30 it says, "Take heed to yourself that you are not ensnared to follow them, after they are destroyed from before you, and that you do not inquire after their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods? I will also do likewise." So what was happening was they were coming into these communities, and they were creative Israelites. They wanted to take some of the creative things that the pagans used to serve their gods and borrow those ideas to serve the great God Yahweh. And Yahweh has this to say about it. He says in verse 31, "You shall not worship Yahweh your God, the Lord your God, in that way. For every abomination to the Lord which he hates, they have done to their gods. For they burn even their sons and daughters in the fire to their gods. Whatever I command you, be careful to observe it. You shall not add or take away from it." Period. Verse 32 of Deuteronomy chapter 12. And some of the most influential Christian leaders in American history were looking for alternatives and refused to celebrate Christmas and Easter because of their pagan backgrounds. Charles Spurgeon said this, on December 24th, Christmas Eve, 1871, look at this quote, "We have no superstitious regard for times and seasons. Certainly we do not believe in the present ecclesiastical arrangement called Christmas. First, because we do not believe in the Mass at all, but abhor it, whether it be said or sung in Latin or English." He went on to say, and secondly, because we find no scriptural warrant whatsoever for observing any day as the birthday of our Savior. And consequently, its observance is a superstition because it's not of divine authority. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the most spiritually held up pastors of all time is Charles Spurgeon. And he himself says Christmas is of no divine origin, it's of no divine authority, and we absolutely should not celebrate it. Why? Because he knew that its origins were in paganism and cultic philosophy. I want to share with you some alternatives, biblical alternatives, something that's straight from God himself, things that he tells us to celebrate, curriculums designed for our children. Look at some of these holidays. First of all, we have what did all of the disciples do in the spring that just so happens to be the time of Easter? Absolutely. It's called Passover. Luke 22:19 says this, "And he took bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and gave it to them, saying, This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." Do Passover. Obviously, Easter was nowhere in the minds of our Lord Jesus Christ, Yeshua the Messiah, or his disciples, or anybody for hundreds of years. They celebrated what's in Hebrew called Pesach, Passover, every single year, remembering the death, burial, and resurrection of their Lord through that incredible holiday where they used to sacrifice a Passover lamb for the remembrance of the death of the firstborn and the freedom from Egypt. But now today they were remembering the freedom from sin, freedom from Egypt, being metaphorical, by the death of Jesus himself. So they would never have connected Easter with Passover. It didn't exist. 1 Corinthians chapter 5, Paul even instructs us in verse 8, "Therefore let us keep the festival," talking about Passover, "not with the old yeast, the yeast of malice and wickedness, but with the bread without yeast, the bread of sincerity and truth."
The affirmative task we have now is to create a new world order.
Notice the new world order. It's almost complete.
But I often myself that we needed a new world order.
Pope Benedict XVI is calling for a new world financial order in the third encyclical of his pontificate.
Globalized economy. The document was released just hours before the G8 summit.
The power behind the scenes secret societies. Notice what is Skull and Bones, Illuminati, Masons, and all them groups. They have one master.
Now we can see a new world coming into view. A world in which there is the very real prospect of a new world order.
I'm also going to start with a mark of the beast that they already have in White House. So be more patient, and all they have to do is enforcing their law, and the whole thing is combined with religion. Unfortunate friends, if you don't understand their final goal, you're gonna be doomed. But the good news is, if you know their final goal, you can escape what's about to happen. Some people will show you some of the secret societies, but unfortunately they don't tell you the power behind the scene, and the whole world afraid because they don't know what to do. Today you're gonna find out. Watch the whole video.
At the Vatican today, a warm greeting for President Obama from Pope Benedict XVI.
It's a great honor for me. Thank you so much.
New world order is emerging.
When really a new world order can be created, it's a great opportunity.
When all who wear America's uniform remain the cornerstone of our national defense, the anchor of global security. We have to shape an international order that can meet the challenges of our generation. The international order we seek is one that can resolve the challenges of our times.
A new world order is emerging. Gordon Brown's verdict as he closes the G20 summit. From America to Ethiopia, they all signed up to a $1 trillion boost for world trade. We'll have reaction around the world and ask what it means for Britain, also tonight.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
It is a new world order with significantly different...
Well, there have been extraordinary scenes in Berlin tonight as thousands of people gathered to hear Barack Obama deliver key foreign policy speech on his current European tour. The Democratic presidential hopeful laid out his vision for America's place in a new world order, saying he was speaking as a proud citizen.
Pope Francis is a first in many ways, the first Jesuit pope, the first pope from the New World, and the first one to take the name Francis. As Jorge Mario Bergoglio, he lived in a simple apartment. As Argentina's top church official, he opposed Argentina becoming the first Latin American country to legalize gay marriage. He opposed euthanasia and giving away free birth control. Many thought his age of 76 would rule him out this time. He is now the leader of more than 1 billion Catholics around the world. And as the world found out the name and identity of the new pope, there were cheers.
Wake up the whole world. Now is the high time to awake out of sleep. Friends, I'm gonna give you a little history. Constantine was the one who united the church and stayed together. Notice, during Dark Ages, pagan Rome, when he marched them to Tiber River, they said they was baptized. So when they came to the church, there was idol statue worshippers. So when they brought their statues in Roman Catholic Church, they start naming them Christian name, Jupiter and all this thing. They call them Peter and Rosary and all this paganism that they brought to Roman Catholic Church. And some of the Christians they don't like, so they protest against. That's why they call them Protestants or Protestant. So they set up their Jesuit order during 1500. The reason they said their Jesuit order is to destroy the Christians that they protest against their paganism.
I'm tired of people saying Christianity is a crutch. It's not a crutch, it's a cross. This planet is covered in blood as a consequence of people who stood for righteousness and truth.
They also infiltrate the state to control the whole world. The Jesuits, they created Masons, and now they got Skull and Bones, Illuminatis, all them secret societies, friends. And what else? Obama and all them powers, they all belong to secret societies. I love everybody. I don't have a choice if I want to go to heaven, but I got to tell you the truth.
He wrote, we must move as quickly as possible to a one-world government, a one-world religion, under a one-world leader.
So as he began to travel the world, over 100 trips in his 25 years, the world was watching. His first trip to a conference in Mexico in 1979 instantly transformed the world's idea of the papacy. Some 5 million jubilant people in one crowd, it was said to be the largest ever. Among those surprised was John Paul himself.
The whole thing is tied with Bible. The church and state is going to unite in the last days, and they will bring the mark of the beast that the Bible says. So notice.
You came from your conference in Durham. I did, your old country. Yes. And it was successful. Successful? You have some decisions. It's not so easy in this voice.
The Iraq War has been another foreign policy challenge, beginning with John Paul's papacy. Other foreign policy priorities for Benedict include pushing for peace in the Holy Land and decrying rising secularism in Europe. He's also been quietly working to establish relations, something that was not possible during the last papacy, largely because of John Paul's role in the fall of communism in Poland.
The Chinese obviously didn't want John Paul II running around China doing the same thing. Pope Benedict is not that kind of a threat to China.
Most of the time, in places around the world, Vatican diplomats work outside the spotlight, where experts say they often have an advantage. Some question how much government leaders of today truly listen to what the Pope has to say. And that, observers say, is a moral authority that can't be measured by economic strength or military divisions. A moral authority Benedict hopes to draw upon when meeting with U.S. officials and speaking before the United Nations. I'm Kim Lawton in Washington.
The Jesuit order, they also infiltrate every religion, especially Sunday churches. That's why Revelation chapter 17 called this power whore. Notice, the mother of harlot. Jesus Christ is the one who died for the whole world, and he's drawn everybody to himself. But this power, they don't want you to go to Jesus Christ. They want you to go to them and confess your sin to them. So notice what Revelation chapter 18 says. And they also infiltrate the kings, presidents. So notice. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen and is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hole of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of her fornications. And notice, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
And will to the
United States.
And will to the
President of the United States.
And
So on occasion it comes up that that I was the mentor of our president. It's only on occasion we get to interact with him.
Well, an occasion is fine, isn't it?
the best of my ability.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
The Obama administration is all in their nonstop effort to retain the power to send U.S. citizens to military prisons.
And why do you think it is that the Obama administration is so adamant about keeping this controversial provision in place?
I really can't speak to the motivation. All I can say is that on civil liberties issues, this president has been even more aggressive in eroding American civil liberties than George W. Bush. And it's really an unfortunate turn in our democracy. This has been occurring since 9/11, but the Obama administration has gone full in for drones. They've gone full in for targeted assassinations, including of American citizens. They've gone full in for warrantless wiretapping, and now they've gone full in for the right to detain American citizens in military prisons, thus circumventing our democracy and our judicial system. Why the president is doing this, when he ought to know better as a constitutional law professor.
The Obama administration is openly escalating its campaign against private gun ownership and shaking up the top ranks of the military command structure. But is it also preparing to make war on the American population? According to a person identified as a former senior military official, the answer to that shocking question is yes.
You can't have a police state and an armed population, so there's no doubt they're going to take the guns away.
Well, a federal judge in the U.S. has ruled Washington cannot indefinitely detain Americans suspected of having terrorist ties unless they have been found in connection with the September 11th attacks. It comes just 6 months after President Obama signed the National Defense Authorization Act, which would have allowed American citizens to be held without trial or charge. The judge initially ruled the act was unconstitutional last month, but the Obama administration asked her to reconsider the ruling.
The arrogance of Barack Hussein Obama is growing by leaps and bounds every day. So is his disrespect for the Constitution of our country, for the Constitution of the United States.
In fact, when President Obama was a senator, he voted to reinstate the Patriot Act in 2006. According to the American Civil Liberties Union, the Patriot Act threatens our First, Fourth, Fifth, Sixth, Eighth, and 14th Amendment.
We're here at Blessed Sacrament Parish, We Are Change LA, to meet someone who has been nicknamed the Black Pope. He's actually the Jesuit general, and his name is Very Reverend Adolfo Nicholas S.J.
Get in there. Yeah, that way.
We're here to say hi and talk to him about his nickname and his extreme oath of the Jesuits.
You just came out of a campaign, election, and the inauguration of a new president. We have been exposed to 1 year and a half of words and words and words, or even religious words, because also religious words have been manipulated. I am so happy we have a financial crisis.
Hello, I really enjoyed your service. Thank you so much. I was wondering, I had a couple of questions. I was wondering if you could clear something up for me.
Maybe later, because now
just really quick. Why do they call you the Black Pope?
Oh, that started in the 19th century.
Did it really?
Yeah, but I don't like it because it's in terms of power, no?
Yeah.
So they thought that the general of the Jesuits had a lot of power, but he was black, so Black Pope.
Oh, maybe, well,
yeah. I'm not Pope,
and
I
you don't
have no power.
And I see that there's a lot of liberal symbols here. One of the things in your Jesuit high oath, I think it says something about, furthermore, you promise to declare that we'll, at the first opportunity, seek war at any opportunity against heretics, Protestants, liberals.
What is that?
See here? And that that will spare neither age nor sex nor condition, and I will hang, waste, boil, flays. You've never seen this before?
No, I've never seen it.
Strangle, bury alive, and it's horrible. And I was like, look, it's in the congressional record. But he was very confused. He'd never seen it before. I told him it was in the congressional record. He said that he might talk to me later about it, but there's a big line. So do we want to wait and talk to him later about it? Just so that you know what I was asking him. I furthermore promise and declare that I will, when opportunity presents, to wage relentless war, secretly or openly, against all heretics, Protestants, and liberals, as I am directed to extirpate and exterminate them from the face of the whole earth, and that I will spare neither age, sex, or condition, and that I will hang, waste, boil, flay, strangle, and bury alive these infamous heretics, rip up the stomachs and wombs of their women, and crush their infants' heads against the walls in order to annihilate forever the execrable race. And then it goes on to say some other stuff. But you can look this up. It's on the internet. I just want to read this on camera real quick. I'm just trying to find a private moment. He said that I could talk to him afterwards.
Okay,
when the line was not so busy.
You need to go outside with all that.
Okay.
Because right now he's not going to read nothing because he's going to go somewhere else.
Oh.
Excuse me. So thank you.
Good.
Do you think we were bothering him?
I think so with your letting us.
Okay.
We can't have that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, sorry. I was just trying to clear something up.
I know. But this...
Well, it's a bill that has received very little attention but may make free speech a felony and seriously restrict your right to political protest. Just signed into law by the president, H.R. 347 gives federal agents sweeping powers to arrest and bring felony charges against citizens engaged in protests where the Secret Service is present. Joining us now with more, Fox News senior judicial analyst, good friend, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, the thing that jumps out off the page, felony?
Yeah, felony means more than a year in jail. This is not like a traffic ticket. For standing and protesting, the type of thing that for 230 years Americans took for granted because it was protected by the First Amendment, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech, has actually been abridged by legislation the President signed last Thursday, supported overwhelmingly by both parties, with very, very little public debate and very little debate in Congress. Basically allows Secret Service agents to decide where there are no free speech zones, not speech zones, no free speech zones. And anybody by the Secret Service can, protected by the Secret Service, can ask those agents to ban protests wherever they are. So I can think of 3 violations: speech violations, association violations, the right to petition the government for a redress of your grievances. What good is free speech if the people in the government are so far away from you that they can't hear you?
Judge, what about keeping our elected officials safe?
Keeping our elected officials safe is entirely different from insulating them from protest. The fact that the president is going to a hotel up the block should not bar you from standing across the street with a sign or with a bullhorn saying what you think about the president's policies. That is not a threat to him, and it is a part of American history since day one that we have the right to speak freely to, about, and against those in the government.
Judge, do you think this is going to be one of those laws that is on the books but not enforced?
I think it's one of those laws that's going to be enforced when the government wants it enforced. The problem, Eric, is it puts a lot of unbridled discretion in the hands of Secret Service agents who may very well say, you know what, boss, you've had a rough day. We'll keep everybody away from you. Or, you know what, boss, this crowd likes you, so we're going to let them, we're going to let you hear them. That's suppressing speech on the basis of its content. And that has been expressly prohibited by the First Amendment since day one.
What dictates the Secret Service is present? In other words, aren't they present all over Washington, D.C.?
Well, they are, and that's a great question, because this law also allows the president to give Secret Service protection to whoever he wants. I'll give you a bizarre example. His campaign managers are coming to Washington to confer with him about the campaign. He can give them Secret Service protection. And then the Secret Service can say to the kids in the streets, you can't shout at David Axelrod, because the campaign manager, because the Secret Service is protecting him. This is a slow, creeping destruction of some of our basic liberties, and the president signed it in secret.
And now some of the Secret Service are going to be providing services for the candidates now as well, right?
Correct.
So
correct.
People aren't going to be able to have their opinion about the candidates?
If the Secret Service so declares, you won't be able to shout at.
The Bible says the mark of the beast means this power has a mark. The beast is a language that God is using for this power. And they themselves, they says in their own book, the book of Catechism, the old version, notice, they says Sunday worship is their mark of authority. The new version, they don't use the word authority, but at least, thank God, they still admit it. Even the new version of Catechism, they still says they changed the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday. Friends, the mark of the beast is not worldly speculations that sometimes you hear. Some people says, well, it's computer chip. Unfortunately, you don't find in the Bible. And some people says, you know, it's 666. But according to Revelation 13 verse 18, actually 666 help you to find the beast. What I mean is to identify the beast. But the Bible says the mark. The reason why I repeat and I kind of stretch it because I don't want you to miss it. It's a deception. Notice the mark of the beast. It's clear. Daniel chapter 7 verse 17 says, the four beasts which thou saw are the four kings who reign on the earth. Babylon is the first kingdom. Medo-Persia Empire was the second kingdom, and Greece, third kingdom. Rome, fourth kingdom. So when Revelation 13 verse 18 says, here is wisdom, let him who have understand calculate the number of the beast, is a number of a man. His number is 666. So according to Revelation 13 verse 18, 666 help you to identify the beast. Roman Catholic, Roman numerals, some of them have a value, some of them doesn't. But when you put all of them together, it ends up to 666. Constantine changed the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday, but unfortunately, Sunday churches, they adopt sun worship day for so many years. They don't want to get rid of it. But actually, it's a pagan sun worship day, Sunday worship. Look even the spellings, you'll find out. Matter of fact, if you look at your calendar, Sunday is always begin as the first day of the week. Unfortunately, they will skip, and some people, they don't know, they will count Monday as the first day of the week, because according to Revelation chapter 12 verse 9, the devil will deceive the whole world. So it's a deception. So the devil, you know, he's in the process blinding the people, including the Christendom. Friends, if you go to church Sunday, notice the first day church, now you don't have the mark of the beast according to Revelation 14 and 13 unless the law is enforced. That's why now you hear different countries, they try to forcing the people to not sell or do anything on Sunday because they try to enforce the law. But according to Bible, notice United States is the one who's going to cause the whole world to worship the beast. Their sun worship day means Sunday worship according to Revelation 13. So whenever United States enforce the law, and every country also going to enforce, because they control the whole world. Every president on the Roman Catholic Church.
When our founders declared a new order of the ages, they were acting on an ancient hope that is meant to be fulfilled.
There's Babylon religion confusion, true mixed with lie. When they front of the camera, they pretend like humble people. Hypnosis, they hypnotizing the world. The Antichrist hiding in plain sight. Bible called this system the mystery. It's a mystery for a lot of people. And according to Revelation chapter 13, the whole world will wonder after the beast. Whenever there's power, the force, the mark of the beast, the world is going to be wonder. They're going to be like, we thought they are humble, smooth walking, good people.
Your Holiness, may I present Archbishop Pagan, primate of the Eastern Diocese of the Armenian Church in America.
According to ecumenical protocol, the Eastern Orthodox would be first in order, as they are, of course, first in priority in the Catholic Church's ecumenical responsibility.
May I present Archbishop the legate and ecumenical officer of the Eastern Diocese of the Armenian Church in America and president of the National Council of Churches in the United States. Holiness, may I present Reverend Dr. Donald McCoy, representing the presiding Bishop Mark Hansen of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. Holiness, may I present Bishop Jeremiah J. Park, Bishop of the New York Annual Conference of the United Methodist Church. Your Holiness, may I present Reverend Wesley Granberg Michelson, the General Secretary of the Reformed Church in America. Your Holiness, may I present Reverend Dr. Clifton Kirkpatrick, the stated clerk of the General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church in the United States. Your Holiness, may I present Reverend Dr. William J. Shaw, President of the National Baptist Convention, United States. Your Holiness, may I present Bishop James Leggett, General Superintendent of the International Pentecost Holiness Church. Your Holiness, may I present Dr. Leith Anderson, President of the National Association of Evangelicals. Your Holiness, may I present Bishop David H. Benke, President of the Atlantic District of the Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod. Your Holiness, may I present Reverend Dr. A.R. Bernard Sr., President of the Council of Churches of the City of New York. Your Holiness, may I present Elder Bernice King, daughter of the civil rights leaders Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King. Your Holiness, may I present Reverend Jimmy Song Jilim, Executive Director of the Council of Churches of the City of New York. Your Holiness, may I present the Right Reverend Mark Sisk, Bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of New York.
You understand the language, Your Holiness, and this is how they call this power. He think he is God. That's what their teachings is all about. Friends, religious leaders, when they come to meet this power, they wearing black, notice, dark color. They represent the sinners, and he represent God. And now listen to what Bible says. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. This is the chapter the Protestant Sunday churches, they are forefathers. They used to protest against this power during dark ages, and they call them Antichrist. Notice Antichrist. But now you don't hear from Sunday churches anymore, because they betray their forefathers. Let's start from verse 3. Notice 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God, all that is worshipped, so that he sit as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Do you not remember that when I was still with you, I told you these things? And now you know what is restraining, that he may be revealed in his own time. Notice what it says in verse 7. For the mystery of lawlessness is already at work.
Pope Francis met with the ecumenical and interreligious delegates March 20th, who had attended his inaugural Mass the day before. The representatives included Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu, Sikh, and Jain leaders. Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew of Constantinople also had a private meeting with the new pope.
When a Catholic Jesuit learns Sunday churches, their doctrine, and Vatican II, when they infiltrate their churches, and they draw all their churches to so-called the mother of the church, because they know their doctrine and they can answer questions and preach. So the members of the Sunday churches, they think all the pastors are faithful pastors. So now it's all about my pastor says, my pastor says, my pastor says. And this is the crying that a lot of times you hear from them. Instead of them to study to show thyself approved, just like Bible says, they're making it flesh their right arm. And some of them, when they learn the Sabbath truth, that is always Saturday, because their pastors has been hypnotized them for so many years. So when they go and they talk to their pastors, instead of them to talk to God and make decision based on that says the Lord, they make their pastors make decision for them, because that's how bad they hypnotize them.
They come right out and state exactly how they infiltrate any religious group they want. They'll come in pretending to be a Pentecostal, pretending to be a Baptist, taking the leadership role and then completely subverting it from the inside.
TB Joshua would engage all known mind control techniques to keep his disciples in check. Sleep deprivation was his standard, and the cruel punishments he meted out for the slightest offenses were calculated to induce fear. Snitching was the order of the day, and he had the ability to disorientate the best of men. Disciples dared not converse freely for fear of punishment. Gradually, the disciples will be led into working out his deceptions to fool the public, becoming tools in his propaganda machine.
I was made a prophet in June 12th, 1999, on his birthday. From then, the powers invested in me increased. I became a terror to co-disciples. People run away from me because I will do whatever he asked me to do. Any disciple he asked me to slap, I will slap.
That the genuine church was also involved in some of the same tricks to a lesser degree? How many more ministers like Chris Oyakhilome did he taint with the spirit of deception?
Revelation chapter 14 verse 6 to 7, the Bible says that the first angel's message is warning the whole world to stay away from sin, because God says fear God and give him glory. So if the people stay away from sin or not sinning, means they fear God and they have given him glory. The second angel in Revelation chapter 14 verse 8 says, Babylon is fallen, it is fallen. It's this system that is confused. This pagan, one-world government, satanic religion that is putting the whole world in darkness is fallen. The third angel's message in Revelation chapter 14 verse 9 to 11 says, if anyone worship the beast and his image and receive his mark, that person also going to receive the wrath of God that is poured out without mixture. Means it's his full wrath. Whenever they force Sunday law, if you accept that Sunday law, that means you already received the mark of the beast.
Cari amici, ieri, martedì 15 maggio, si è celebrata la giornata internazionale delle famiglie.
Marking the World Day for the Family this week, Pope Benedict has appealed for the right to work and to rest for families worldwide.
Libero fra due questioni strettamente connesse.
In comments following his Wednesday lesson on prayer and the life of the early church, The Holy Father said work should not hinder the family but rather support and unite it, helping it to be open to life and to enter into a relationship with both society and within the Church. The Holy Father also hoped that Sunday, the Lord's Day, and our weekly celebration of His resurrection will be a day of rest and an opportunity to strengthen family bonds.
I have repeatedly offered $1,000 to anyone who can prove to me from the Bible alone that I am bound to keep Sunday holy. There is no such law in the Bible. It is a law of the Holy Catholic Church alone. The Bible says, "Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy." The Catholic Church says, "No, by my divine power I abolish the Sabbath day and command you to keep holy the first day of the week." And lo, the entire civilized world bows down in reverent obedience to the command of the Holy Catholic Church. T. N. Wright, CSSR, in a lecture at Hartford, Kansas, February 18, 1884. The Catholic Church for over 1,000 years before the existence of a Protestant, by virtue of her divine mission, changed the day from Saturday to Sunday. The Catholic Mirror, September 23, 1893. Question: which is the Sabbath day? Answer: Saturday is the Sabbath day. Question: why do we observe Sunday instead of Saturday? Answer: we observe Sunday instead of Saturday because the Catholic Church in the Council of Laodicea, AD 336, transferred the solemnity from Saturday to Sunday. Peter Geierman, The Convert's Catechism of Catholic Doctrine, 2nd edition, 1910, page 50.
Friends, whenever they enforce their sun worship day, Sunday worship, whenever the law is enforced in your country, do not accept it. The mark of the beast in their forehead, symbolic in Revelation, your forehead means your decision. And also when Revelation says their right hand means your action will follow your decision once you accept their sun worship day, when it's an enforced Sunday worship. Friends, take a stand. Christ is coming. He loved you so much so that when he was on the cross, Jesus Christ says, "I thirst." So whenever you're in temptation, remember when he says, "I thirst," because of you and I. Order The Great Controversy. Notice the book, The Great Controversy, because it's preparation. It will prepare you by the grace of God.
And if you do visit one of the local churches, make sure to visit a local church that has these two charts hanging up in there. Because if it's not hanging up in there, you may want to be careful